Welcome to today's Explainer. You know, when you first look at Jiraiya, it's easy to just see the goofy, self-proclaimed, perverted hermit who's always, doing his research at the hot springs. But man, there is such a profound, epic narrative hiding right beneath that surface. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the life of this legendary Sannin. This is a guy burdened by a literal mythical destiny, a man whose entire existence was defined by one desperate, lifelong search.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this great Toad sage quote, it's basically the structural spine of Jiraiya's entire life. While he was training at Mount Myoboku, he was handed this incredibly heavy, world-altering prediction. I mean, just imagine for a second being told that the fate of the whole world rests squarely on your skills as a teacher. No pressure, right? From that moment on, every single journey he took, every student he accepted, it was all filtered through this one overwhelming prophecy. He wasn't just wandering aimlessly out there, he was searching.
Section 1. The First Candidates, Minato and the Ame Orphans.
So, looking at his progression, Jiraiya actually starts out as this really mischievous genin under the third Hokage, Hiruzen. You know, constantly failing bell tests, getting tied to stumps, the whole 9 yards. But his skills evolve crazy fast. During the Second Shinobi World War, he survives this absolutely brutal fight with Hanzo of the Salamander, which earns him the title of Legendary Sannin. Then, as a Jonin mentor, he ends up training the natural genius Minato Namikaze, totally thinking, hey, maybe this is the child of prophecy. But then, in the grim aftermath of the war, a deep sense of guilt makes him stay behind in the Rain Village to train 3 desperate war orphans. And honestly, this is where everything shifts.
While he's training these kids, Jiraiya makes a massive discovery. One of them, a quiet boy named Nagato, actually possesses the Rinnegan. Now, this is a legendary dojutsu, an eye technique tied directly to the mythological sage of the Six Paths, who legend has it once saved the world. When Jiraiya sees this, he is 100% convinced. He thinks, I finally found the child of the prophecy. This realization makes him go all in, completely dedicating himself to teaching the orphans ninjutsu. He's pinning all his hopes on guiding Nagato to become the world's savior.
But here's the thing about Nagato. He wasn't just powerful. He had this remarkably kind heart, driven by this super pure desire to just protect his friends and find a path to peace in a completely war-torn world. And that deeply, deeply moved Jiraiya. Actually, Nagato's worldview completely inspired Jiraiya to write his very first novel, The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. When the time finally came for Jiraiya to leave the orphans so they could forge their own path, he left behind a finished copy of this book, dedicating it right to his most promising pupil.
Moving on to Section 2. A Master Returns, the Search for Tsunade. So, fast forward to when Jiraiya finally comes back to the Hidden Leaf. He bumps into this loudmouth kid named Naruto Uzumaki. Fun fact, Naruto was actually named after the main character in Jiraiya's first book, a name chosen by Minato, Jiraiya's old student. Now when they meet, Naruto's chakra control is an absolute disaster, but Jiraiya takes one look and figures it out. Orochimaru had slapped a complex 5-element seal on Naruto to block his access to the Nine Tails chakra. Showcasing some seriously elite fun jutsu skills, Jiraiya easily unseals it. I mean, Orochimaru himself said fixing that would require someone of Sannin or Hokage caliber. It's a real game changer for Naruto, and this moment bonds them. Jiraiya takes the kid under his wing, and they hit the road to track down his old teammate, Tsunade.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole concept of passing the torch. Because the Rasengan, it isn't just a powerful attack, it's literally a generational legacy. Think about it. Minato, who was Jiraiya's student, originally created this wildly complex jutsu. Then Jiraiya steps into the mentor role to teach those exact mechanics to Naruto during their trip. And finally, even though he's definitely not a natural genius, Naruto masters it through sheer stubborn perseverance just so he can protect his friends. It's a beautiful cycle.
Ultimately, this whole search culminates in this massive, climactic, 3-way Sannin deadlock. Jiraiya had actually been drugged by Tsunade earlier, so he can barely mold his chakra, but he still fights valiantly alongside his giant toad summon, Gamabunta, to fend off Orochimaru. His unwavering loyalty to Konoha really shines through here. He absolutely refuses the Hokage title for himself, but he fights tooth and nail to successfully secure Tsunade's leadership for the village. It really proves where his heart is when it comes to the Hidden Leaf's future.
Alright, Section 3, The Final Student, a 3-year journey.
Now this dynamic right here, this is the thematic core of Jiraiya's entire life. We're looking at his 2 pivotal disciples, both viewed at one point as potential children of the prophecy.
On one side we have Nagato, who suffered just immense loss and ended up twisting Jiraiya's teachings. He starts seeking peace through pain, destruction, and this terrifying godlike control. But then you look at Naruto. He completely embodies Jiraiya's true spirit. He seeks peace through relentless perseverance, by genuinely trying to understand others, and by just flat out refusing to give up. It's fascinating, right? The exact same mentor produced two completely opposite manifestations of his ideals.
I should point out, though, this training trip was incredibly dangerous. At one point, an attempt to weaken Naruto's seal goes horribly wrong, and Naruto loses control, going into this terrifying version 2 Four Tails form. The resulting rampage actually severely injures Jiraiya. We're talking a massive permanent scar completely across his chest. But what does Jiraiya do? Actually, scratch that. It's what he doesn't do. He doesn't abandon Naruto. He doesn't even get angry at him. Instead, he shows this deep, almost grandfatherly love. He pivots their entire training regimen to focus on keeping Naruto's anger in check, prioritizing the kid's safety above absolutely everything else.
Section 4. The Tragic Climax. Infiltrating Amagakure.
Okay, things get pretty heavy here. When Jiraiya heads into the Rain Village alone, we see that his espionage skills are truly masterful. I mean, he literally infiltrates the village hiding inside a toad, captures guards, and uses shadow manipulation to pull information out of them. But the tension escalates so fast as he starts uncovering some horrific truths. He learns that a mysterious guy named Pain single-handedly killed the seemingly unbeatable Hanzo. Then, out of nowhere, he's confronted by Conan, his former orphan student. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle just violently snap together. The leader of Akatsuki isn't some random warlord, he's intimately tied to Jiraiya's own past.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how Jiraiya adapts. To even survive an enemy on this crazy scale, he has to unleash an incredible technique called Sage Mode. Since gathering natural energy in the middle of a high-speed fight is incredibly difficult, he does something wild. He literally fuses his body with the Elder Toads, Fukasaku and Shima. This dramatic fusion supercharges his physical strength, his speed, and his ninjutsu, giving him this really distinct toad-like appearance. The stakes here have honestly reached their absolute terrifying peak.
But you know, even with Sage Mode, the odds he's facing are seemingly impossible. Jiraiya is confronted by the 6 paths of pain. We're talking about 6 completely distinct physical bodies, every single one possessing the legendary Rinnegan, and they all share a connected field of vision. It is an absolute nightmare scenario. Jiraiya isn't just fighting one guy, he's battling a hive mind entity that can absorb his absolute strongest ninjutsu, summon giant mutating beasts, and just miraculously revive its own fallen bodies.
The climax of this fight is it's utterly brutal. Jiraiya manages to retreat into a barrier, captures one of the bodies, and finally gets a good close look at it. And in this shocking moment of clarity, he recognizes the face. Needing to know for sure, he ventures back out to confirm his theory, and is just instantly ambushed. His throat is crushed, his left arm is severed. It's devastating. But as he lays there, looking up at the 6 faces staring down at him, the horrific truth hits him. Every single one of those 6 paths of pain is a ninja he had personally crossed paths with during his decades of traveling the world. Talk about a chilling realization.
Section 5. The Legacy. Tale of the Gallant Sage.
As his life slowly begins to fade, the sheer tragedy of Jiraiya's character comes into full, heartbreaking view. Because his dying thoughts, they aren't about his glorious victories or his legendary status. They are entirely consumed by self-doubt and all his perceived failures. He laments never winning Tsunade's heart. He regrets his inability to pull his friend Orochimaru back from the darkness. And he agonizes over failing to protect his student Minato and his master Hiruzen. At the very end, he views his own life as just this beautifully flawed, heartbreaking series of disappointments.
So the crucial point is what happens next. Through just sheer indomitable willpower, Jiraiya forces his stopped heart to beat one last time. Why? Because he remembers Naruto. He remembers the kid who never, ever gives up. The kid who embodies the true, enduring essence of what it means to be a ninja. And in this incredibly powerful emotional crescendo, Jiraiya finally realizes that Nagato was a false dawn. It's Naruto. Naruto, with his completely unyielding spirit, he is the true child of the prophecy.
Using literally the very last ounce of chakra left in his dying body, Jiraiya forces his finger to move. He manages to etch a coded message right into the back of the Elder Toad, Fukasaku, spelling out the secret to defeating pain. And this final heroic act, it perfectly encapsulates his deepest core belief. that a ninja's life isn't measured by how they live, but by what they manage to accomplish right before they die. With that message, he formally entrusts the entire fate of the shinobi world to his final student.
Thrown into the sea by Pain's final attack, Jiraiya starts to sink into the dark water. But here's the beautiful part. He is no longer plagued by failure. He's finally at peace. He's satisfied. He internally declares the close of the tale of Jiraiya the Gallant, and with this genuine, peaceful smile on his face, he decides that the sequel to his life's work, well, it should definitely be called The Tale of Naruto Uzumaki.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. You know, Jiraiya was actually offered the position of Hokage 3 separate times, and he refused it every single time because he truly believed he was unworthy. But it leaves us with a pretty massive question. If a shinobi's true worth is determined by their final act, did Jiraiya's ultimate sacrifice, his brilliant mentorship, and his unwavering dedication actually make him the greatest Hokage Konoha never had? Think about that for a bit. Thanks so much for joining me today, and as always, keep exploring.